So I think that the citizen scholar has to be attentive, and this is a Morrison word, attentive to all of those kinds of things. Within the academy, of course, literary value has a lot of significance. Mm-hmm. And what we call the culture wars, where we began to shift our thinking about what we valued and how we were going to transform our thinking around that. And many people exited. They simply dismissed themselves from that battle and left it alone for other people to handle. But I do think that you've got to put the two things together. You got to understand what value means, and you have to, as Morrison talks about, how power laden it is. You make decisions, you make choices, you are exhibiting value in one way or another. So it does seem to me that you have to understand, without getting into the public side of it, that education does produce two types of people. The knowledge that you're providing, you're responsible for producing, transmitting, validating. People who go on to replicate themselves within the academy, or people who are more outwardly looking and move that knowledge into different arenas. I think that citizen scholar is the person that is the bridge between those two areas. The outwardly looking area, and continue to produce within that replicates knowledge and hopefully expands it, enhances it. I'm thinking, for instance, Debbie started with thinking about quotes, but it's that quote that we use in Bench by the Road project, where, I'm sorry, not Bench by, this is the unspeakable things unspoken. When I read that passage over and over again, I use it in class, I connect unspeakable to unthinkable. So one of the experiences that's very academic is reading Morrison in the classroom, and she's talking about experiences that are unspeakable. She's speaking about them, but it forces us to enter into that unthinkable zone, forcing ourselves to think about things that we do not want to think about. That's where we get into, to evoke John Lewis here, good trouble, bad trouble. When we start doing things, forcing discussions in the classroom in a safe environment, a respectful environment, of course, but really having those difficult dialogues. And I think the citizen scholar has to do that, forces that to the fore, but also everybody learning, everybody benefiting.
The teaching and learning. It has to go back and forth.
Teaching and learning, yes.
Speaking of teaching and learning, I saw as you were talking, Deb, flipping through the book, looking for pages. What you got for us, Dr. McDowell?
Well, no, I was really thinking when Mariama was talking about value, I was thinking too about how often Morrison throughout her work is calling for the necessity of a transvaluation of values, right? And never more so than in the academy. There are places where she challenges, one in particular, I won't read all of it, but she is writing in the essay called Moral Inhabitants. This is the passage. If education is about anything other than being able to earn more money, and it may not be about any other thing, that other thing is intelligent problem solving and humans relating to one another in minimally constructive ways. But educational institutions and some of our most distinguished scholars have considered the cooperation among human beings and mutually constructive goals to be fourth and fifth rate concerns where they are concerns at all. And I think that too is about value. It's about what we value. If these are fourth and fifth rate concerns, if that is what we value, if scholars, if universities do not believe it is their obligation to train people to do more than make money, if we don't think our obligations as scholars is to do more than advance our own careers, I mean, and she is really quite implicitly critical of this, then what do we do? Again and again, she is talking about values that need to be reconfigured. She's talking repeatedly about the necessity for a transvaluation of values, because at the end of the day, if we look throughout her novels, if we look throughout her essays, if we look throughout all that she has written, at the end of it all is what makes this life worth living for the greatest numbers of us, right? It is always about the greatest good for the greatest number. There is always the suggestion that in order for us to inhabit spaces that are truly worth inhabiting, that are truly worth living in, right? That it requires, yes, accountability, it requires responsibility, but it also requires, she is not reluctant to say, some measure of sacrifice on our parts, all right? To get beyond, she is writing constantly about the necessity of getting beyond our individual wants, our individual desires, our individual needs, in order to think cooperatively about what is good for the whole. All right, so.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Mariama and Deb. Don't go anywhere. We'll bring you back at the end for closing thoughts and for additional passages, but we want to shift now to our second segment, which is about Toni Morrison's publics. As you have already heard, there's no real separation between the Academy and the public for Toni Morrison. In The Dancing Mind, the speech she gave on the occasion of her acceptance of the National Book Foundation Medal of Distinguished Contribution to American Letters in 1966, she told the audience, quote, "There is a certain kind of peace that is not merely the absence of war, it is larger than that. The peace I'm thinking of is not at the mercy of history's rule, nor is it the passive surrender of the status quo. The peace I am thinking of is the dance of an open mind when it engages another equally open one, an activity that occurs most naturally, most often in the reading, writing world that we live in." Joining us for this segment to explore the conversation related to Toni Morrison's publics, which of course also includes her role as an artist, are Edwidge Danticat and Imani Perry. Please welcome to our Zoom room, Edwidge and Imani. Edwidge Danticat, as many of you know, is novelist and short story writer, many of which offer her depictions of Haitian history and culture and post-colonial Haitian identity. Her memoir, Brother, I'm Dying, was a 2007 finalist for the National Book Award and a 2008 winner of the National Book Critics Circle Award for autobiography. Her book, The Art of Death, was named the best book of 2019 by BuzzFeed, Time, and Esquire, and she has recently released Everything Inside Stories. Welcome, Edwidge. And Imani Perry is the Hughes Rogers Professor of African American Studies at Princeton University. Her latest books include May We Forever Stand, A History of the Black National Anthem, which received the 2019 Hurston Wright Legacy Award and the 2019 John Hope Franklin Publication Award. Then there's Looking for Lorraine, The Radiant and Radical Life of Lorraine Hansberry, which received the PEN Bograd Weld Award for Biography, and Breathe, A Letter to My Sons, which was a finalist for the 2020 Chautauqua Prize and the NAACP Image Award for Nonfiction. Welcome, Imani. Thank you both so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, we're very happy to have this conversation. Both of you work with Ms. Morrison at Princeton in different ways. Imani, of course, as a fellow faculty member, and then Edwidge as a guest at the Atelier program that Ms. Morrison organized. When you think about her work, especially in relation to the novels or the essays, but then you can also take it to the multimedia if you want to as well. How do you think about the evolving role of art and its representation in the public at large? I know, big questions. You can go anywhere you want to.
Well, Imani's more the scholar. among other wonderful things. So I'll